Today on the channel, we're going to take a look at Guitar World from April of 1996. Alright, today we're going to take a look at Guitar World from April of 1996. We got Billy Corgan on the cover here with Eddie Van Halen. He's going to interview Eddie, and Eddie's playing a Wolfgang, the Peavey Wolfgang. Billy's got him a Peavey Wolfgang there. This was right around the time when things started to go off the tracks with Sammy after the Balance tour. So it has been forever since I opened this magazine. I wait to do these magazine reviews with everybody, so it's fresh for me. All right, let's see. We got Korn there. I cannot play a 7-string guitar. I just can't. I think they're cool. I can't wrap my head around the 7th string. I've played 6 for so long. I don't see the point. I would just buy thick strings and drop tune. Okay, table of contents there. There's Alex Lifeson playing his PRS. Cool Warmoth ad. Love Warmoth bodies. They're good. Check out this Peavey lineup. That's a Peavey stack right there. Never saw that. Wonder how good that sounds. It's funny, you look back at these old magazines and I can't remember so much of this stuff. This is funny. This is back when there was these Porta Studios, these small little portable deals. I remember getting a digital mini disc, 4-track and 8-track. I recorded so much. I recorded a tremendous band demo on an 8-track digital mini disc recorder. Those things were great. The Gibson SG, only a Gibson's good enough. 61 reissue. I actually remember playing one of those in a Thoroughbred music. Then it became Sam Ash. Got some Jacksons. Cool. The sounding board, once again, let's see. Let's pick one out here. The top 50 albums of all time feature was a joke, with the exception of Medal of Honor critics suck. They know nothing. You wasted too many pages with their wannabe rock talk. Anyone who relies on that rock critic says obviously doesn't like their music enough to form their own opinion. Funny. People would actually write these letters in. That still makes me laugh when I think about someone actually wrote them. Maybe they were getting emailed. I doubt it in 96. The good old days. Write on a piece of paper, lick a stamp, put it in the mailbox. Big enough to blow your mind. Toneworks. A powerful new effect processor. I bet you that thing sounds terrible. But hey, who am I to say? I never tried one. That's Eric. After a long self-imposed absence, guitar virtuoso Eric Johnson is finally wrapping up his highly anticipated album due out this spring. The recording, tentatively called Fairpath Meadow, has been a half-decade in the making. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't Avia Musicom. Well, why wouldn't you want it to be like Avia Musicom? That's what I wanted to know. That's what everybody else wants. I guess that was the guess that's what came out to be Venus Isle, maybe. I don't know why Eric just doesn't cut his records fast. I mean, he can improvise great. His concerts are live are fantastic. Then he spends all his time on getting his records done, and then they're just so mellow and I love Eric Johnson. He's one of my favorite players of all time. But man, I wish he would just put out content, put out product. Back on this page, I was trying to remember. This is around the time Steve Vai came out with Alien. What was it? Alien Love Secrets? Was that the name of that album? With Bad Horsey on it. There's Oasis, British Steel. I'm a big Beatles fan. I think Oasis were great, but I always felt it was a little too Beatles. But you know, they were great. Nude Awakening. While traveling recently on the instructional clinic tour of Europe, docking guitarist George Lynch ran into some problems at the Swiss-French border. The only reason I went to Europe was to get a bunch of cool stamps in my passport, says Lynch half jokingly, but because of EEC, European Economic Community, has made it so easy to cross borders, they won't even bother to stamp you anymore. So when I was going into France, I got out of my car and they insisted they give me one. When the border guard saw my short, slick back hair and dark tan, he figured I was probably a Middle Eastern terrorist in fake American papers, and he decided to search my bags. Lynch was led inside where the guard started to go through his stuff. He found my Deja Vibe stomp box. It's handmade with old radio knobs, dials, and switches, and immediately thought it was a detonating device. I told the guy it was a guitar effect pedal. He nodded knowingly. After a moment, he asked, "Do you have ecstasy?" I figured he was a guitarist and assumed he was talking about the German-made Bogner amp of that name, because we were so close to Germany, and Bogner amps are pretty big in Europe. So without thinking, I went, "Yeah, but I left it at home in America." Upon hearing George's response, the guard led the guitarist to another room where he unceremoniously strip searched. No amps and drugs were found. I think this Guitar Magazine review was worth reading that story again. There's Everclear. I remember those guys. I saw Everclear open up for No Doubt and 311 in '96. That was pretty fun. Fun times, man. I liked a lot of the 90s. A lot of the 90s I didn't care for, but some of it was pretty cool. I look back at it a lot more fondly now than I did at the time. Trey Anastasio. There's Dave Navarro playing on Parker Fly. He switched to PRS. I don't remember Navarro playing Parkers. Is that Carmen Electra back there? She's lost a lot of weight. Needs to eat a sandwich. Maybe his ex-girlfriend in the closet back there. Skeletons in the closet. Fernandez. I've never played anything by Fernandez. I think the Fernandez Strats look pretty nice. Sepultura. What kind of Epiphone is that? Stacy Jones and the Cornet. It's a Cornet. Looks like an Epiphone Fender. I think I like looking at some of these old product advertisements better than some of these interviews and some of this band stuff. Look at this Zoom pedal. Zoom multi-effects systems. Man, the 90s were a time of effects processors. Technology was starting to get better, and it was kind of a revolution in tech. A lot of it was really bad, but some of it was pretty good. Mixers. Look at this boogie. Dual caliber. Crate. Blue Voodoos. Sammy Hagar played Blue Voodoos, I want to say. I've heard those are really nice amps. Keeping the Faith, Bad Religion. Never was really a Bad Religion fan. Don't mind them, but I never really got into their stuff. I'm probably missing out. Let me know if I am. Oh, this cool picture of Ed. There's Dimebag. Cool picture of Ed. Peavey and Edward Van Halen announced the Wolfgang guitar. Look at this. At the Anaheim 1996 NAMM show, Peavey Electronics and Eddie announced the release of the Wolfgang. So this was the, that's right, 96. That's when the Wolfgang started. I always associate the Wolfgang Peavey with Van Halen 3. It was hard. I had a black patent pending one that I sold, which was not the smartest thing to do, but I had to do it a long time ago. But I always associated the Peaveys with Van Halen 3. I never could get over that stigmatism with the Peavey. And then I saw the 04 tour when that was the tour he smashed his Peavey and he went to EVH. Started an EVH company shortly after that. That's a cool ad. Love him or hate him, man. Gene Simmons was he's a cool dude, man. He's I like Gene. That was right around Revenge. This was the Revenge era. You can tell by Gene's his whiskers he was growing, and his hair looked better back then. I thought that was that dude from the Kiss cover band, the Kiss Army. It's a nice looking hammer. All right, here we go. Eddie, always smoking, man. I hate to see that. Always lighting up. Billy looks like he's trying to avoid the secondhand smoke. Billy Corgan always reminded me of Uncle Fester. He's wearing the black, and then he was always pale. Gonna make a lot of people mad. I'm so opinionated. I never really cared for the Smashing Pumpkins either. I had a few songs I thought were cool, but anyway. Best of both worlds. Alternative rock's Crown Prince interviews hard rock's reigning king. Make no mistake, Eddie Van Halen can still kick your ass. The man who single-handedly changed the face of rock and roll is still mean, lean, and sharp as a tack. As you can, and if you dispute the ownership of the crown, try to imagine a world without him. I came to pay tribute, sneak a peek at the famous Marshal, and meet the man I most wanted to be when I was 17. And that was written by Billy Corgan. Cool. We'll skim through this. Probably the interview's probably super long, so I probably shouldn't do the whole thing. But let's see. Kicks off. I was very familiar with the David Lee Roth era albums through '84, but when I prepared for this interview, I listened to everything. So my question would be just about the past. What struck me about Sammy Hagar era albums was that there was a slow but distinct movement away from the kinetic approach of the early albums to a more song-oriented focus. I sensed for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge your playing was in a weird place. That maybe you were getting in a rut. Okay? But when I listened to your most recent album, Balance, in '95, it struck me that you sounded like you were really enjoying yourself again. I think that Balance sounds dark, personally, and For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge sounds inspired. So anyway, Eddie, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge took a year to record. That's why we were playing on it. Might sound labored. Balance, on the other hand, was written and recorded in only 4 months, so the whole process was quicker and more immediate. I think Bruce Fairbairn, our producer, had something to do with a sense of excitement on Balance. Instead of arguing with me, he encouraged me to pursue my own ideas. He was somebody I could relate to. Together, we were able to create a vibe. 4 months to record Balance. That's a long time for a record. It really is. It took a year, I think, to do them for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, because they just built the studio, and I'm just a normal jerk who happens to make music. Here's some pretty neat little pictures. We can zoom in on these here. Eddie smoking a cigarette. He's looking like Rivers Cuomo. And not the dude in Weezer. Thought that was Eddie for a minute there, Billy Squire. It's not always to know what people view you as. It's not always easy to know what people view you as. This overly emotional, overly sensitive big guy. That was hard to read. The fonts were weird for me. Sorry about that, guys. So after 20 years of recording, what makes you still want to rock? It's because I'm still 16 inside and still have the passion. And any true musician doesn't do it for any other reason than passion. My motivation has never been financial. Music is what I do. It's the only thing I know how to do. Let's see what this one says up here. I think my desire to do my own thing came from my dad. He was a real soulful guy. He played sax and clarinet like a mother. Unfortunately, he was also an alcoholic who died when he was 66. But he lived a full life. My mom, on the other hand, is 80, but she doesn't live. So if I'm trying to find balance between them, I don't want to be like my mom and live to be 80 and not live, and I don't want to die when I'm 66 like my dad. Wow. I admire your attitude because I feel like I'm always fighting not to repeat myself. And Eddie says, I don't know, seems every time I walk into the studio, it seems like the first time. It's like I've never written a song before. I'm just as scared. In fact, someone asked me the other day what I thought I had learned about making music after all these years. And I said nothing. I'm scared crapless all the time. I'm really insecure that way. What age did you start to play guitar? I started smoking and drinking and playing guitar at age 12. How old were you when you did your first album? I was 22. How did you get to playing your first open G chord to playing? How did you go from playing an open G chord to playing Eruption? And Eddie says, practice. I used to sit on the edge of my bed with a 6-pack of Schlitz malt talls. My brother would go out at 7 p.m. to party and get laid. And when you come back at 3 a.m., I would still be sitting there, same place, playing guitar. I did that for years. I still do that. Where did that attack style of playing come from? At 22, you were killing people. I have no idea. I can tell you how I came up with that certain technique, but the rest is a mystery. It's the way I learned to communicate because I was never very good with words. I was just chosen. It's a good interview. They talk about everybody tapping, and it's just his form of expression. It's what he does, blah, blah, blah. We've heard that before. Sorry if I'm skipping that, but we've heard him talk a lot about tapping and people replicating that. And Eruption. Somebody asked me the other day what I thought I had learned about making music after all these years, and I said nothing. He's a pretty humble guy. Let's see what else. How did you guys write the first album? It's my guess that much of your early music evolved out of jamming. Eddie says, a lot of the basic ideas were things I came up with when I used to practice on the edge of my bed. I would take all these ideas to band practice. At the time we were rehearsing in David Lee Roth's father's basement so me and Al would go over there by ourselves and jam the ideas for hours until we came up with something that we were happy with. For example, Al and I jammed on those basic riffs from And the Cradle Will Rock 2 hours a day for 2 straight weeks. Eddie laughs. We didn't really know what to do with it, but we were having fun because it sounded so wicked. Then out of nowhere the chorus came to us and it was finished. Sometimes you really have to work for inspiration, but ultimately it's not really work because my brother and I generally love to jam. I'd say that's the way most things happen in our band. I usually begin with it begins with me and Al, which is funny in a way because most people don't usually think of the guitar and drums as a unit. It's usually bass and drums. Let's see what's another good question on this page here. Again, I just do whatever comes out. I can't help the fact that I've written Can't Stop Loving You or Jump. Don't blame me, Eddie laughs. Actually, if I could deliberately sit down and write a pop hit with all my songs would be pop hits. Let's put it this way. I play what I like to hear, and sometimes what I like to hear something poppy, and sometimes I don't. That's like me. I think we're all like that. Most of us, I think. Let's see. I think two great albums are Women and Children First and Fair Warning, says Corgan. I was starting to get more involved. And Billy says, yeah, and it shows. Eddie goes, especially on Fair Warning. But what I had to do to get involved was very strange. We'd work during the day, and I wasn't very happy with the way, next page, with the way things were going, or the way things were that people were approaching the whole recording process. I'd sneak back in the studio at 4 a.m. with Don Landee and completely re-record all the solos and overdubs. The messed up thing was, no one ever noticed. That's how uninvolved they were on a musical level. What can you tell me about Push Comes to Shove? Eddie says. That was Roth's idea of trying to cash in on the reggae thing. I said, okay, if you want that kind of beat, I'll see what I can do. And then Corgan says, that's an incredible guitar solo. And Eddie says, I'll never forget that one. We were sitting in the studio with our producer, Ted Templeman, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I must have played that solo over 20 times, and Ted kept saying, no, it's not good enough. So I said, okay, but I don't understand what you want. So we just called it a day. Later that night I came back and played the same solo that I played 20 times that day and left it. The next day he heard it and said, that's great. On the whole album, I was angry, frustrated, and loose. It's like the solo in Unchained. I love that song. It's rare that I can listen back to my own playing and get goosebumps, but that's one of them. My frustration continued to grow when we made Diver Down. Half the album was covers. I hated every minute of making it. David Lee Roth had the idea, if you covered a song, you were halfway home. Then he says, Van Halen doing Dancing in the Streets, it was stupid. I started feeling like I'd rather bomb playing my own songs than being successful playing someone else's. That's a cool quote. Well, let's see what else here. Right, when Jump went #1, I was almost embarrassed. You did this whole album because it was what you wanted to do, not because you wanted to prove anything wrong or make money. The thing after 20 years is it doesn't change. I hope you're prepared for that, Billy. They talk about, Billy says, on Van Halen 2's liner notes, you guys parachuted into a stadium show. What was that all about? And Eddie goes, that was one of Roth's big ideas. It never got, I'm not even sure why, but he said, let's parachute into the stadium. And of course, we couldn't do it ourselves, so we hired a professional skydivers to jump out of the airplane right before our set. The idea was that we would wear identical gear and run on stage, so there we were wearing these crazy heavy outfits, sweating our balls off, waiting for the skydivers to come down so we could jump on stage. It was really silly, and it almost turned into a complete catastrophe because while we were trying to get out of the gear, Al severely twisted his ankle and had to play the show with basically a broken foot. What a mess. That interview is continued on page 194, so we'll catch up with that in a minute. There's BB talking the blues. I was driving down Nashville in the late 90s, and it was about 1 a.m. on a weeknight, and I saw B.B. King's tour bus pull into a hotel on Broadway, West End area. And I sat there and waited, but they didn't get out. But I was like, man, that's just so cool. It said B.B. King on the side of it. Clapton Comes Alive. Clapton looking a little bit like a disheveled Pete Townsend there. Corgan Guitars. Oh, check it out. We got a centerfold with Billy and Ed. Let's take a look at this. It's just basically the cover, but without Eddie smoking. So Eddie playing the Wolfgang. I wonder if he gave that Wolfgang to Billy. I always thought it was cool. Eddie played with 2 rings. He always played with 2 wedding bands. Anybody ever else notice that? There's Albert King's Flying V. He was a lefty. Didn't know that. Look at that little Sovtek stack. The Unknown Soldier. Rory Gallagher. Bet you that's a good album. Bet you it's darn good. 6 Feet Under. Never heard of him. Mr. Big got 3 stars for Hey Man. Los Lobos, The Posies, Guided by Voices, Mike Johnson. Where's the rest of the interview? We got a ways to go. Get past some of these. There's Santa Monica. We could live beside the ocean, watch the world die. Art Alazakis, that was a singer for Everclear. Man, they waited to the very end to finish this interview. Oh, dude, look, Ibanez Universe 7-string. There's this, they got the Universe out. List price, $19.99. That means that thing probably went for like 1,400 bones, 1,500. I don't like 7 strings, but that's cool. Red Bear. That stack is $700. Red Bear is in Nashville, Elm Hill Pike. That's just down the road from Gibson. There's Slash. 2555 SL. Slash has put his name on more products, I think, than any artist. If anybody can think of anything that's been endorsed more by any artist other than Slash, let me know in the comments. Not that that's a bad thing. Yeah, look, 2 pages to go and we got the rest of this interview. They made sure we looked at all those advertisements. Okay, so let's see. Corgan says, I saw the 1984 tour. In fact, I waited in line all night and froze my ass off to get tickets. I was on your side of the stage, of course. It struck me that the band seemed really disjointed on that tour. Well, yeah, Eddie says, it had degenerated into the Tonight Show. There were so many solo spots that it seemed like we were doing the show one person at a time. We were never out there as a band for more than 10 minutes. And then Corgan says, yeah, it was pretty strange. Dave could tell some jokes, and you'd disappear off to the side and go off into Eddie's house. Eddie was saying, it was like, hey, Johnny, are you done with a monologue yet? It wasn't a band anymore. It couldn't have gone on that way. It was a good thing that Roth quit. Man, this is some good stuff in here, man. Billy says, it's strange that you even though you were going through so much turmoil behind the scenes at the time of '84, your public image was still so positive and uplifting. Van Halen says, Roth was very good at maintaining the public persona of the band. That was his thing. It's strange because we were perceived as a party band, and I still never go out and party. I guess that had to do with Sammy. But that's nothing wrong with that. In fact, your music makes people feel good. Eddie says, that's my point. The music makes people feel good. I'm not sure if it's our responsibility to also act the part. The point I'm trying to make is that at this point in my life, I'd like to strive for something deeper. There are more emotions I would like to express that are difficult to express when you are perceived as a party band. Corgan says, so do it. Do it and take your lumps. he did too. Van Halen 3. I have almost the opposite problem. I'm viewed as this weird crippled character, and it's not always easy to know that people view you as this overly emotional, overly sensitive guy. But artist to artist, you got to take your lumps. Eddie says, "Oh, I know, and hey, come on, man. I've been in this for over 25 years. I've taken them. There's a plaque on our wall that says we've sold over 65 million albums, and I don't feel like I've accomplished anything. I feel like I'm just getting started." Billy says, "That's the artist in you. Even in your Guitar Hero days, you were never vainglorious of it. The band has never appeared snotty." And Eddie goes, "And there's a certain amount of honesty and heart and soul that goes into it, and people can feel even on Diver Down." Billy says, "That's why you'll always have people on the other end for you." And Eddie ends the interview by saying, "Music is for people. The word pop is simply short for popular. It means that people like it. I'm just a normal jerk who happens to make music. As long as my brain and fingers work, I'm cool." Amen. What an awesome interview. I remember when I first read that interview, I think the news had broke about Sammy leaving the band, and I think I was so bummed and didn't know what was going to happen. I don't think I really enjoyed that interview, but in retrospect, that is a fantastic Eddie interview. So there you have it. Guitar World, April 1996, Billy Corgan and Eddie Van Halen. Please like the video, please subscribe, leave a comment below. I appreciate you watching. Till next time, peace out.